When I was listening to everybody here, I realized that there is one common element here, which is we as people. See, if you look at our business, nobody in their right mind would get into the hotel business. Okay. It's high capital intensive. You take debt. In India, you get short-term, high-cost debt. Uh, it is highly volatile in terms of demand. It has very high fixed costs, which is mostly people. And as I said, it is very volatile in demand. And we've just come out of 10 years of utter misery after the global financial crisis.
Yeah.
And then you get hit again like this. So the only answer, I think, is either we are all mad or we are really passionate about our business. And I think it's a combination of the two. So I just wanted to share this insight when I was listening to everybody. Now, talking very, very quickly, you see, I don't think we as hoteliers can depend on the government to help us. It's not like the US, where a friend of mine who owns a hotel called me yesterday and said 85% of the salaries was paid by the government. The Indian government is known to do too little, too late. And I think if we go with that premise, we can try our very best, but we should expect very little. Now, coming back to your questions, my broad perspective is, as human beings, the other day I was reading a book on psychology that we tend to remember and overreact to very negative stuff. And we live in that moment and we do not realize that life is a sine wave. Things go up, things come down. So I'm going to refer back to two incidents in one which is documented but not quantified, and the other which much, much worse than this. So let's talk about the 16th, in the 14th century and again in the 17th century. 1/3 of humanity was wiped out in the plagues that occurred. Coming to the latest, which was the Spanish flu 100 years ago, between spring 1918 and spring 1919, which was in fact during the World War, out of 1.5 billion people in the world, 500 million got the disease and 50 million died. I believe India itself had 10 million deaths. So if I put it in the current context, it would be as if 2.5 billion people in the world get the disease and 250 million die. So it's a question of scale and how we react. My personal view is that we have reacted to it because of the instant communication systems that we have. But what I would like to remind myself and everybody here is that humanity has always overcome. So with that perspective, I have a 3-year perspective, which is very clear in my mind. And this is what I think is going to happen. Firstly, for the first time in history, the whole world, every government, every pharma company, every laboratory is focusing on curing a single disease. So one can expect with technology, with the kind of technology and knowledge that we have, that there will be a cure, and that's therapeutic, and a vaccine within the next 2.5 years. Okay, so what we've got to ask ourselves is short term, which is the next 1 year, mid-term, which is the second year, and I expect, and I'm very confident, a very positive third year onwards. So the short term, what I see happen is the following. If you look at this disease today, it's a wave. So, we are all scared about mortality. So what are people scared of? If there are 1,000 people who are in the population, they will all get the disease with infectiousness. 800 will be asymptomatic. I think Vikram spoke about that. They will be the young people. 200 will go to hospital, 100 will go to ICU, 50 will go to the ventilator, and 40 will die. 4% death rate. But that's an incorrect death rate because of the 1,000 that who have got it. There are 10,000 others who are in the forward wave who've gotten infected, but we don't know. So firstly, mortality is low, but unfortunately, people think it's very high. So what I think will happen is, till there is a cure, which is likely to happen in the next anywhere 6 to 12 months, because of this fear of death, there will be no travel or marginal travel. That's my perspective. So there will be utter demand destruction. at least till the end of this calendar year. So what do we need to do till then? Just two things. And actually, it's a positive, the way I see it is. One is drop your costs. And at least in our system, in our company, we've said, whatever happens, we will do two things. One is we will not lay off our associates, but we will take massive salary cuts at leader level in order to ensure that we don't have to lay off anybody. And the second is we will make payments to the small vendors. And I'll come back to why I am saying this. Timely payment to the MSME vendors to our group. I think this is an opportunity for us to redefine ratios. I was looking at two of our hotels, one in Hyderabad and in another city, where in Bangalore, where we were doing 90% occupancy. And I discovered that we are running those hotels with 40% of the sanctioned staff. Now, this was an amazing thing. What is sanctioned staff? We all define sanctioned staff. But how do we define it? We found that in a 270-room hotel, we used to have 5 receptionists. Today, we are running it with 2. Okay, obviously, check-ins and check-outs are very few. But the point is we need to review our entire ratios, because I think this is an opportunity for us to restaff at an optimum level and use this crisis to discover that optimum level. What do I see happening in 6 to 9 months to 12 months is a cure. Definitely there will be a cure which will reduce mortality. And among the 3 segments that consume hotel rooms in India, the domestic travel will start. My only concern is that flights should not be so constrained or destroyed, airlines destroyed, or social distancing being put in place where the cost per seat is so high that it will preclude travel. So first 1 year, I see destruction of demand. Second year, I see revival of domestic demand to a small extent. But worryingly, I see that if you don't have a liquidity cushion, a lot of demand will get destroyed, which means hotels will shut down. I don't know if they will change hands, but some hotels will shut down because of lack of support from the government. And this will lead to long-term supply destruction. In the next 2.5 years, I am certain that a vaccine for the virus will come. Think of it for a minute, everybody, that this virus is 2 months old as far as the world is concerned. It really started in mid-March and it is now mid-May. In 2 months, look at the level of research, attention, and whatnot that is being given to this virus and a cure for it. Never before in history. So my view is that in 2 to 2.5 years, a vaccine will come. It will take 6 months to produce on a massive scale worldwide. We should be proud that the Serum Institute in Pune alone produces 1.5 billion vaccines a year. So there is no reason why we can't ramp up on a global scale to produce. And what I see happening is that 3 years from now, and I'm going to completely disagree with everybody here, once the world is vaccinated, it means 95% immunity. I'm predicting, okay, and you can hold me to it, social distancing will go out of the window. We will revert to norm, just like what happened in 1921 after the Spanish flu. Okay, we will revert to norm and everything will come back. But in the process, we must learn to retain those cost ratios that we've got and use them successfully to be more efficient. My broader concern is actually not linked to the hotel industry. It is linked to contraction of supply across India. Because so many industries, especially the small, medium industries, due to lack of liquidity will die, that it will lead to a lot of unemployment, which will be leading to social unrest. And my second concern is that if vital elements of India's economy, supply chain, are permanently destroyed, then there is no question in my mind that the Indian economy will contract for at least the next 4 to 5 years. So that is the bigger fear. Not that we will come back, but that demand will get affected by the death of multiple small industries. I was talking to Brookfield. Their guys called me from New York. And here's the perspective.
Okay.
Brookfield, as you know, is one of the world's largest asset owners, real
Yeah.
estate owners. So this guy is telling me, he's an Indian based in New York, that there are 12, I'm just giving an example. There are
Sure.
1,250 malls in the United States and 55 in India. Okay. So he said, we don't even consider India, we don't even look at India. Let me tell you what we're looking at in the US. The 1,250 malls, most of them are in clusters just outside cities. So they are, people are encouraged to drive there and, like what happens in India too. He feels that because of contraction of demand, 60% of these malls will shut down in the next 2 years, which means from 1,250, it will drop to 500 malls.
Right.
He says in the next 2 years, demand will come back to 50% of what it was pre-COVID, which means the demand that would have fed 625 malls will now be fed by 500. So actually, footfalls of the surviving malls will go up. And then 2 years later, demand will come back to normal. And social distancing too will disappear. And therefore, any mall that survives will be enormously successful. Now, I'm not drawing a parallel between India and America, but I generally feel, and I do believe, that there will be significant supply destruction in India. Okay? And the surviving hotels will benefit with, even if there is a contraction in demand for, due to a contraction in economy, surviving hotels will go back to normal. So I'm willing to actually bet on that. Jyotsna, you and I can have a deal. I'd like to come back to just one broad point. You see, we've traditionally been a very fragmented industry, and we do crazy stuff. For example, if I'm competing with somebody for some business, okay, and that business belongs to that person, I'll go and drop the price in order to shift it. And ultimately, that person will retain it and have to drop the price to match the lower price I offered. So we do these suicidal things all the time, okay, as an industry. I think there should be more. I think one I would urge everybody to think of is rationality in the cost structures that we impose. Now, we are both owners of hotels and managers of hotels. I'll give you a simple example. We took a few steps. For many years, I used to complain in my system that why is our food cost at 36%? In the last 2 months, our food cost is 21%. How we achieved it was very interesting. Okay, I'm not getting into that specifically, but what I'm saying is, what I found interesting was that in crises like this, customer habits change, and those changes in habits can be driven by us. I'll give you an example. Why can't we make smaller buffets? Buffets will come back. I can guarantee you, whether it's 2 years or 3 years. Why do we have to have 200 items in a buffet? Why can't we, as all branded hotels in India, offer a wholesome buffet but not go crazy on the variety? See, once we start things like that, it becomes a vicious cycle. So buffet is one. Second example, a very interesting example. Our customers, today our air conditioning is on at 26 degrees centigrade. Normally it was at 20. Okay. Customers come, they say, why is it so warm? So we, of course, very glibly say, and it is true actually, that it is recommended by the government. In some state governments, they've said, if you have air conditioning, it should be at a minimum temperature of 26. As a standard, why don't we offer 22 degrees? I mean, the savings are so enormous for owners, whether it's a management company or actually an owning company. These learnings we must not remove, is my bigger point. Things will come back to normal. Even in Spanish flu, people go mask, social distancing, all that disappeared in 3 years. So let's take these learnings and not reimpose those costs on our system for the mutual benefit of the whole hotel industry. So that's my broad perspective. Besides, of course, I agree with what the others have said.